Hello, everyone. My name is Kashan Hopkins. I'm an instructional technology specialist from Oklahoma Public School Resource Center. And today in this Tech Talk, we're going to talk about Flippity, which is a tool that takes Google Sheets and turns them into wonderful activities. So before I get into that, I'm joined here with my colleague in this Tech Talk. I think you should get to know him, and I want to give him some time to introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Kurt Bernhardt. I'm the technology director for OPSRC. Kashan and I make the technology team here. If you need any help with any type of technology, just reach out to us and Kashan will let you know how.
Yeah, I would say the best way to do that is through our email at techteam@opsrc.net. Best way to catch us. We'll get to you as soon as we can. Moreover, if you're here and you want to have the slides and follow along, I have a link for it over here in the slides itself. I'm going to read this off since it's case sensitive. So it's lowercase t period ly / lowercase t a uppercase r z. Or you could get, if you're watching this through recording, chances are you probably already know about the Tech Talk page. If you haven't visited, you should go ahead and check that out at opsrc.net / tech talks. Just to peruse that for a brief moment, we have our upcoming Tech Talks at the top. So if you like what I do here, I'm going to be doing it for the next few weeks. And so check out what I'm going to do for quizzes 2 and bottle learning. In the middle of the page, if you scroll down, you can see a little button that you can suggest future tech topics and tools. And at the very bottom, we have our archive tech talks, which makes up a majority of the page. Each one of these has different sections, which span from technology standards, tech integration models, special interest topics, and individual tech tools. And each one of these tech talks comes with a recording, very much like the one I'm doing here, and a copy of the slides, which includes all my research and resources that I think will either help go over some of the basic steps for these tools or gives you ideas or look for extension activities. And so great stuff in terms of resources. Go ahead and bookmark that if you haven't, or share with your colleagues. Okay, so that's a bit of the intro stuff out of the way. Let's focus on what you came here for, which is Flippity. So let me show you what it's all about. I'm going to show you one of the activities, which is flashcards. One of 28 activities, I believe. And so I'm going to swap over if you want to follow along. I'm going to have a link for that. But it looks a little something like this. And so these have already been created for me. In fact, this is the demo flashcards that come with the website. One really nice thing is that each one of the activities comes with a demo and a set of instructions, so you can get a template to manipulate and then turn into whatever the activity happens to be. And so since I have the flashcards, of course, they work like if you had physical versions of them. You have the front of the card with the term, and if you click it, it flips it around so you can see the other side. And if you keep clicking, it will swap to the next index card, and it even shows you how many index cards you have and which one that you're at. And so real easy to interact with them, and nice little colors to swap between. But if you look around, expand your view a bit, we have a couple of buttons that we can tap. Like for example, and I don't think I have it set up here, so let me reshare my screen here so you can hear a little bit of the sound. But one of the features that I really like about these flashcards is that it reads it to you, which I think is pretty great. So if I click on
the winner of Super Bowl 32.
Yes, that button up here, the little sound symbol,
Denver Broncos.
it will read it out to you, which is quite nice. As long as you're using, text on here. As you may have seen on one of these, you can also include images as well. And I believe there is a section for videos as well. So you're not just limited to text down here, although the reader, the text to speech won't be able to pick up on that. So that's kind of a limitation there. You can also remove cards if you feel like you've learned them. You can shuffle the deck up if you want to mix things up. And you can even flip so that the card shows side 2 instead of side 1 first. So you can flip that around. And you can reload the cards if you want to put back the cards that you have removed. So pretty straightforward in terms of functionality there. At the top of the screen, it gets a little bit more interesting here because based off of one single Google Sheet, you can actually get tons of other activities as well. Flashcards is just one. You can click on the list tab to get side 1 and side 2 for more of like an overview list study view, and you still already have those little audio buttons you can click.
The capital of Malaysia.
To have it read it off for you, which is really nice. you can click the third tab for matching. So if you select flag of Argentina, you can find the other pair that goes with it and it will remove it. So I'm not going to embarrass myself and try any more of these. Wait, I think I got one. Franklin Pierce and 14th President of the United States. So you can see it gets rid of those. And if you want to collapse all that down and remove all the empty space, you can click collapse, shrinks it down. And you also have a little timer here that keeps track of how long it's going to take you, and a reset button to put them all back. And you can also do open response practice on here, which works quite nicely. You can flip the terms and the definitions just like before. You can shuffle it up, you can reload the deck, and it counts how many you got incorrect and correct. And there is even more under the more tab on here. It will translate it to other activities. So there's quite a bit you can get from one single list. And I'll show you how to set that up in a little bit, but hopefully that gives you an idea of how Flippity can be useful to you in your classroom. Before I get any further, I just want to introduce this tech talk over here. Set the table, so to speak, and then we'll spend a majority of our time showcasing what the tool is about. So first, my objective after this tech talk, educators will be able to integrate Flippity into their classroom to help students remediate and extend their learning. For the schedule, we got kind of the basic setup for an individual tech tool. We have the tool overview. I answer a couple of questions, and then I spend most of the time showcasing what the tool is about, a couple of the first steps, just pointing out a couple of different things that you can use inside of that. Next, we have integrating technology. I spent a little bit of time talking about how do you plan out how to use your technology before it even hits the classroom. Then when to combine those first 2 points into this third one, which is tool applications. During that time, I want to invite you to think about what would it look like to have that piece of technology in your classroom. And then finally, we wrap up. I just point out a couple of things in my slides, some resources that I think are going to be useful to you, and then shower you with my undying appreciation. With that, let's get started. We have the Flippity overview. Quick question of what is it? Short definition: transforms Google Sheets into activities. So if anybody ever asks, that's a real quick one that you can give. A couple of features I like to go over. We have 28 activities. Every activity has a set of demo and instructions. So the instructions always have a template wrapped up into it on the very first step. And so I'll go over that on the next slide, what that might look like. And I'll show off a couple of the demos in the showcase. Flippity can be accessed through the web browser. And so through a frequently asked questions section in Flippity, which I'll refer to a little bit later, it shows off all the different web browsers that are common that work well with Flippity, a bunch of different hardwares. It's a really accessible tool since everything is based out of the website. And you only need a Google account to get yourself started. And the people accessing the cards, very much like the flashcards that we worked with a second ago in the demo, really you just need to share the link with them. They don't need to sign in and log in. So it's real nice to be able to get into that. But that is sort of a double-edged sword situation because of the way that the activities are set up. There's no simultaneous play. Even if you have 2 different computers open up the same website and the same link, they're going to be playing on 2 different instances of that. So please keep that in mind. And there's no progress save. So if you have them go through some of the practice problems where it's like you go through a bunch and then you submit them sort of as a batch, there's no progress save for that. So that does get into a little bit of a weird gray area when it comes to determining if a student has done the activity or not. So you have to be a little creative in determining if a student has actually done the activities. And you can get around this by either doing things like screen sharing, like if you're doing distance learning and you're doing it through Zoom, you could do a screen share, or you could have students submit screenshots. And a couple of the activities have like built-in, like this person got this many out of this type of deal, or you could submit some kind of product in that case. So I'll try to share a bit of that a little bit later. Once again, all of this is done through link share. You can share out a link, real easy to get access to, and you can embed media like images and video and links, of course. So good stuff. to help you out a little bit, if this is the first time you ever use the tool, I've included some basic steps to get yourself started. We're going to log into Google. Then we'll select an activity. We'll go through the instructions. Through that, we'll make a template. You'll make a copy of the Google Sheet template. That way we can make sure that we get the formatting right whenever you make your activity. From there, one of the things I highly recommend that you do, very first steps that you don't forget, is to give a title to the copy. Otherwise, you'll have a bunch of like extra copies of whatever the activity is called. Then we'll go through the process of publishing that sheet. That way it's going to be accessible when you share the link out. And then finally, you share the Flippity specific link on there. So I'll guide you through all of these steps in the showcase, which is what we're about to jump into. And you can access all of that through Flippity.net. That's FLIPPITY.net. So let's not waste any time and jump on in there, and we'll come back to these slides as we're working our way through. But first things first, make sure that you are logged into your Google account. That way, whenever you make copies, it's going to the right place. If you're like me and manage a bunch of Google accounts, you want to make sure that it's going to the right place by logging into the main one that you plan to copy all this stuff over. So I'm already logged in since I'm using these sheets already. So step one's taken care of. Step two, let's go to the Flippity website, which looks a little something like this. This will show you all 28 lovely activities, each of them paired up with a demo and a set of instructions. I highly recommend, if you do nothing else, go through each one of these and check out the demos. I think these activities are fantastic, and there's no way that I can show them all in the small amount of time I have here, but there's some really exciting stuff I think you can integrate into your classroom, not only for your students, but for you as well. And I'll try to show a bit of that in a minute. Step two is the instructions. So I'm going to click on the instructions for the flashcards, and it sends me to this page with a bunch of steps. Now you could also just follow the steps, because the rest of this will pretty much look like these steps over here, but I wanted to include them all on this page here. Next, you want to click on this template and then make a copy. So right over here, it's highlighted and underlined. The very first step is make a copy of this template. You want to click on that. It'll open up a separate page. There is a space where it says copy document, and then you can make a copy of this blue button right here. It might take a second to go through that, but it should look a little something like this. And you want to make sure you do all those steps. That way you get the formatting correct. Do not, on the flashcards, do not mess with this top two row business. Otherwise, your activities will come out a little funky, or you'll lose some of the functionality of that. Unless you want to change something like the audio on here. Now, the audio for the text-to-speech is like basic Google Translate. It's not perfect, but it kind of does the job. It's good that it's there at least. And then from there, you can edit your rows down here. Everything from row 3 and down, you can change. So like, for example, if I want one of my slides to be, what does the acronym OPSRC stand for? I can say that side 2 is going to be my definition, Oklahoma Public School Resource Center. So right now I'm just messing with the demo here. I'm going to change the card color. Let's do a nice red, and let's change the text to black. Or I could just leave that blank. I think the default's black, but you can adjust those colors, no problem. Okay, so I have done step 3, I made that copy. Ooh, I skipped step 4. I definitely would have forgotten. At the top left-hand corner, you have a title. You want to change this to something that you will recognize. So I can say OPSRC Tech Talks Flashcards, something like that. But a quick change will help you make sure that you don't have a bunch of like similarly named things, sheets to bury each other with. Next, you want to publish this. So this allows you to share this activity out, and we'll save everything on there. So I'm going to go up to File, and then Share, and then Publish to Web. You'll be taken to this page over here. And if you want to do a quick thing, you can click on Publish. Your settings might differ a little bit depending on what your network, like whatever your administrator has for publishing things. Something that you do, if you do have the ability to change it a little bit, something you do want to check is under the very bottom, there's a button that says Published Content and Settings. If you click on that, it'll open up that window there. And one thing you want to make sure that's checked is automatically republish when changes are made. So that way you can sync everything across just like you would for any Google tool. And then from there, click publish. It'll confirm, you'll say okay. It will give you a link. So this is a link to this page that we have here. What you actually want is the Flippity specific link here. So I'm going to close this. So that's step 5. We publish things out and it will automatically publish for me. And step 6 is go to the get a link here tab at the bottom of the page and copy that link. So down over here, you can see right next to where it says flashcards, there's a get a link here tab. I'm going to click on that. And then here's my lovely link. So this is what you'll actually share with your students. Because if you copy this link out, open up a separate page there, you have this lovely set of flashcards. It automatically updated for me. It might take a minute or so to do that. I haven't had it take longer than a minute to update before. And it is all here. Let's see if it'll read it out for me.
What does the acronym OPSRC stand for?
Oh no, I misspelled that. I'm so sorry.
Oklahoma Public School Resource Center.
Fantastic, but this all works the way it should work. And once you get this process right here, it's all the same. Like this whole process is how you get a copy of basically any activity that you have. All 28 of them it essentially work the same off of this process. There is a set of instructions specific to each activity because there are some frequently asked questions to help you do things like, how do you add pictures in there? Well, you can't just upload it directly from Google Drive. You actually need to get an address and paste it in the section. How do you embed YouTube videos? You can even add math equations in there. Desmos actually works really nicely inside of these. And so, yeah, there are some extra options down there under that frequently asked questions. And it's something that I think Flippity does really well, is make sure everything is sort of packaged together. So you don't have to go scouring and looking for answers to the issues here. It's all on this one set of instructions here. All right, so that is how you create your own, and that's how you share it out, and you basically walk yourself through that step process here. I'm going to spend the rest of the showcase just showing off a couple of the different activities. I highly recommend that you do this yourself as well, but I just want to highlight a couple of the ones that are really interesting to me personally. So first, the Flippity Flex cards. That is one of the newest activities that they've set out on here. I think this is really great because you're able to take one idea and add a bunch of information on that. So it's like having a multi-sided flashcard on here. So the example here that they give is the country's United States, and you can have different bits of information about that. And this is something that I think students can put together as well. Like you give them one example to go off, and then you can just let them get crazy with the other example. So I can click next slide, or in fact, if I'm using a keyboard, like in this case, I can click I can tap the right arrow and it swaps between the different cards here. So United States, the capital is Washington, D.C., the flag is this, the map is that, a little bit of background, YouTube video, a link, and the GDP on there. And what's really nice about this is that this is all one row essentially in the Google Sheet. And if I click down or press down arrow on my keyboard, it switches the country and gives me the same information. So I think this is a really great activity if you're trying to compare ideas. You can get a lot of information about one idea and then compare those different elements of those ideas. So we can look at the different maps here, or if you want to compare the flags and the way that they are look and the designs, it's really great stuff. And you even have extra options up here, very much like the flashcards you have here. So you can shuffle up the cards, you can reload them, you can star specific cards, or you could toggle dark and light mode, which is really nice for someone that has terrible eyes like me. Love the stark mode over here, a little easier on me. Something I didn't point out is on every activity at the very top, it says want to make your own set of whatever the activity is. If you click on that, it will guide you directly back into the instructions. So just an alternate way to get into there. Great stuff. Okay, there is the quiz show. You know, if we have smart boards and stuff like that, we've dealt with all of this, the Jeopardies, the templates, and whatnot. So this is a really easy way to create a bunch of that stuff. You have teams on the left side, and you can add and subtract teams. depending on how you want to set that up. If you click on any one of these items here, so this is, I imagine this activity is something you would do like as a whole with the class reviewing a couple of different topics. So I'm going to click the first question. It says, what is the best movie of all time according to AFI? I have no idea, but if the team gets it right, maybe you have them work on like whiteboard or something, or like they all write down their answer somewhere and then they share all together. You can say which teams get it wrong or right. So if I click the card, it will flip it over and says Citizen Kane. Awesome. And the sound is a little loud, so be prepared for that. But I can click and say if it's incorrect or correct on here. And so when I click to the next page, it will give the score on there and keep all track of all that for me. So real easy to set that up and real easy to deploy to your students. And you don't even have to share a link in this case because it's all going to be run hopefully off of your own business. What else do we got? What else? The Flippity random name generator on here, I think is nice. You load it up with a bunch of names and then it has a bunch of different ways to randomly pick a name. We have a lovely little spinner, has these lovely colors on them, and it will eventually slow down and pick a person. You can click single name on here. There's a lineup situation. You can do groups of 2 or groups of 5. You can do teams instead. You can make it automatically do a seating chart. And if you click more, there's loads of options on here. I've never even noticed this gift exchange one. Neat, real neat. Okay, cool. All right, what else do I got? Let's do bingo. I think the bingo one's pretty interesting because it incorporates QR code. So this is actually an instance where it gives everybody who visits the list a separate copy of this so they can interact with it. So we have our list of terms here, which are the states of the United States. And I can print out a bunch of different boards on here. I click the print option and it will give me all these lovely boards to print out for people to use. I can click play and it incorporates the QR code, or I can dump it into Google Classroom so someone can scan it on their phone and then they get their own bingo card, which is quite nice. And it's pretty cool because you can actually interact with it. There we go. You can actually interact with it. Like if I click on Florida, it will put a little game piece on there. So you can actually keep track of it. And it works on phones. So you can try that stuff out. Okay, one last one. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about tech integration. Yes. So Flippity Timeline, I think, is fantastic for history classes because you can take one idea and then stretch it on this lovely little timeline here, which is fantastic. And you can shrink down the timeline so you can see all the events, or you could expand it out so you can see the distance between events. So this is all about lovely Mr. Rogers. And you can add details in them, excuse me, like these Google Slides here. So this is a wonderfully, surprisingly really in-depth activity that I think works really nicely in here because you can add loads of details. This feels like a really nice way to package a history project, I think. Really cool stuff. Okay, that is it for right now. I'm going to save the rest for you. I challenge you, if you think this tool is cool, visit the other activities and share out what is your favorite ones. I would love to hear more examples of how Flippity is being used in the classroom. But I want to yield the rest of my time to talk a little bit about tech integration and roll that up into applications. So now that you've learned about the tool, how can we empower ourselves and empower our students with the tool? So something that I always encourage educators to ask themselves when working with technology is how to actually integrate it. Like have a physical plan in mind on how it's going to be used and in what way. And so there's loads of ways to answer this question. One of my favorite personal ways is through the technology integration matrix. I love it because it's detailed and there's clear steps and dimensions to it. And the different dimensions are there's 5 different characteristics of learning environments according to this matrix. And there's 5 levels of technology integration that you can use a technology tool to interact with these different characteristics. And it starts from simple, from the left-hand side, to the most complex where the students are getting the most out of the tool. The 5 different characteristics would be active, collaborative, constructive, authentic, and goal-directed, though different ways you can use this tool. And I'm going to pick one of them, in this case, constructive, and I'm going to do a little activity called Move Up a Level, or Take It Up a Level by Roy Winkleman. The idea is that I'm going to focus on just one characteristic, and I can do this for all the different characteristics and see where my class is at and what would it take to get my class up to the next level. And so hopefully this will give you an idea of where to start with how to use your tool here. So let's go through that with Flippity. First of all, constructive characteristic is defined by connecting old knowledge to new knowledge here. And so I'm going to use this tool to help out with that. And I think the formative assessment review nature of Flippity through most of the activities here really fits with constructive. So first of all, I'm going to assess where my class is at. If my class has never used the tool, then it's easy to identify. They're at the entry phase. But you can do this with the tool that you've been using in your classroom for a while as well. This works nicely, no matter where you're at with the level of comfort for your students. But since I'm at the entry phase, this is characterized by passive use of the tool. The teacher selects the tool, they have all the power, and they're really just pushing information down to students. So the basic first step here. In fact, you really don't even need technology for this step, but I'm going to introduce just a little bit of it in this case. So first of all, I think a great way would be to do what I did with all of you in this tech talk, which is pick an activity and just share out like the demo that you have edited yourself. So in this case, use the flashcards made by you, but you can do this with really any activity, and I think it would still be really useful for the students. Now, from this, we're starting from teacher-focused activities, and we're going to slowly transition into giving students a little bit more autonomy, a little bit more responsibility, make them more of the owner of their learning experience here. So once you feel like students are familiar with the term Flippity and what could be possible through activities, then you slowly transition them to the adoption phase, which is characterized by procedural use of the tool. Really, the tool as intended, you'll take advantage of some of the basic features here. So like, for example, you could have students go to Flippity, you'll select a tool, maybe something that they're familiar with, maybe you've already done a flashcard activity, or you want them to set up like a flex card situation, or you found just some tool that you think works really well, that you think is going to be easy for the students, and have all your students do a tool that you select that you think will be a nice way to introduce them into copying the sheets, Google Sheets, and then translating that into a Flippity activity on there, but just getting them practiced and more familiar with how the tool works and how they can use it to enhance their learning experience. Once students are comfortable there, then I highly recommend that you challenge them to go up to the adaptation phase. This is when, this is characterized by more independent use of the tool. Students are, at this phase, I feel like students have to have a choice in the matter on selecting how they're going to use the tool. So in this case, I recommend doing some kind of like summative activity, like a project, but something that they're taking information that they learned and putting it in like a big project. Like they're presenting information that they've researched and learned in here, and then they get to select, they go through the different activities and try to select ones that match the best with how they want to present the information. Okay. So this is just one idea. There's so many different ways to approach even this characteristic or any of the other characteristics, but I highly recommend you at least try to think it through and see how this tool can be used to enhance different parts of your classroom, just whatever you think is the most important to you. Okay, I am nearly out of time. Thank you so much, anybody that is joining me for this. I hope Flippity has been a good use of your time here. I'm going to wrap this up by sharing a couple of the last slides here, just highlighting a few pieces here. Next is a page dedicated to Flippity. I highly recommend you go to the website. Remember, my challenge for you is to go through and just check out the games. I think there's a lot of really great stuff on there, and it just needs to be unpacked. And it's not just the 28 you see on the website. You can see that there's those lovely tabs at the top that will lead you to a bunch of different activities, and maybe you can find the one that's right for you in your classroom. Next couple of resources refer to the frequently asked questions that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Visit that place. It will really help you out through some of the main things like putting an image or a video inside of your flashcards or in your activities. There's the troubleshooting section that will also, I think, pairs really well with the FAQs. And the Twitter, if you go over there, they regularly update it like once every like 2 weeks. They have things like new features or new activities. So I think that's a good way to keep in the know if you like Flippity. Next page is about technology integration. If you like this planning stuff that I've been doing over here, there's so much more and different ways to answer that question. There's the TPAC framework. You can look at the SD standards. I think those are 2 other really great alternative sources to look at. And if you ever want to have a conversation about any of this stuff, I would love to unpack anything. In fact, I've done some tech talks over a handful of videos, and I'm hoping to do more in the future. And then finally, my last page. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have bothered to listen to this tech talk, I really do appreciate. And I hope you've gotten something out of this. I have a link to my evaluation there. Please take a moment or 2 to fill that out. It's just like a 1-page, few minutes. I try to make it as easy as possible so I can get some feedback and make these better. There's also a QR code on the right-hand side. I've been Kashawn Hopkins. I'm joined here with Kurt Bernhardt. Thank you so much, Kurt. He has to listen to all of these, so I really do appreciate him hanging out with us and learning about all these different tools. You can reach out to either of us through techteam@opsrc.net, or if you like what I do here, go to opsrc.net/tech talks. You can get more of this business. There's a whole page of 51 now. Yeah, 51 tech talks. And then at the very bottom, I like to include the socials in there because we have some really cool, exciting stuff you do not want to miss out. Get yourself connected to the community and get out there and be active. We would love to hear what you have to say and what cool things are going on in your schools. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a great day.